Second segment, Gold and Black Live, Roosevelt Barnes. This is my favorite part because we get to go back and go down memory lane. And Rosie's got such a good memory of memories. Not all of them great memories, but unbelievable playing experience at Purdue. You played in 3 sports. You started obviously with basketball and baseball, but then played as a 5th year in football. And yet you were recruited to play running back. I mean, you were a terrific high school running back, All-American level from Fort Wayne. Indiana was very interested in you, as I recall, as a running back. But what really swayed you to basketball? I mean, what was that? Just your passion of growing up in Fort Wayne and playing against the Eugene Parkers and the Walter Jordans and others? But what was that?
Yeah, I always loved basketball more, and like you said, playing with Eugene and Walter Jordan, who both came to Purdue. That's probably the main reason why I came here. And plus, they had Joe Barry Carroll. And then I had a cousin, Ron Barnes, who played for Indiana State. He was down there when Larry Bird was there. Larry came in and set out, I think, his last year there. So basketball was always my first love. But I was really good in football, and you know, I played football because it was football season.
Yeah.
And Lee Corso, I was being recruited. Recruiting is so different now than it used to be, but I remember Lee Corso came and told me that I was going to be, they had Quinn Buckner at the time, so Indiana was recruiting me for football and for basketball, said I could be Quinn Buckner. And Lee Corso says, hey, you're going to be my starting running back, and you're going to win the Heisman 2 years in a row. And I thought, okay, well, that sounds pretty good, because I wore number 44 in high school because I liked Chuck Foreman.
Oh, okay.
And then I went down to a game, and they had me on the sideline, and Indiana was playing North Carolina State.
Yeah. And
they had a Curtis, well, I don't know if his name was Curtis, but I think his last name was Enos or something like that. He was a running back. And they ran him right down the middle, and he got hit, and his face mask exploded. And he came off, and he was dizzy, and it was getting him smelling sauce, and they're putting 2 fingers in his. And when he got hit like that, I said, man, that's against North Carolina.
Yeah.
I said, oh, I don't think I want to play football. I don't think I want to run up in the middle and try to get the Heisman Trophy. So that game right there convinced me that I was going to play basketball in college.
And that's our first half truths, because he is the toughest guy. I mean, I haven't been around him for 3 years, and watching him play college basketball, most tough-minded person that I've been around is this guy here in terms of just being tough-minded. But so I think there's truth to that. But basketball is your passion, though.
Yeah, basketball.
And you, because you were younger than some. I mean, Fort Wayne had some great players, like I said, in your era growing up. But that learning to win on those playground courts, and how did you get picked to play with guys? Gene Parker, obviously, who's a business associate as well, but those guys were a little bit older than you, and how did you tag along and get into that group?
Well, like I said, it was a little different era back then, and you would go. There were certain parks that you would go to. You'd go to Weiser Park. You go to McCulloch Center, especially McCulloch Center on Mondays and Wednesdays, and that's where all the old heads, all the older guys, and even older than Eugene and those guys like Dick Lowry and
so Mike Muff. No, he was the same age.
Mike
was
Muff. He was
same as Walter,
all those type of guys. Clyde Dickey, people like that. Big John Gunn, Alonzo Craig, Tim Smiley. Those were the guys that you wanted to respect you. And Mr. Hollins. And so it was there was 2 courts, or one end was the young guys and the other end was the big guys. And so once they felt like you were good enough to play on the other end, you could get picked up. And I started getting picked up probably in middle school, getting to play with the older guys. But you understood your role.
Yeah.
You were the 5th guy. You got a chance to play. If you turn it over, you know, back then you might
Yeah.
get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're not gonna play anymore. And if you gave up a basket, you may not get to play again. So
Yeah.
you learn to value winning
Yeah.
and not making mistakes. And then, and the older guys, once they accepted you, they would teach you.
Yeah.
You know, they pull you off to the side and tell you what you did wrong, what you did right. And you didn't get any fouls when you were the young guy.
Yeah.
Even if they fouled you, if they
Yeah.
tackled you, you didn't get it.
Yeah.
And so you had to learn how to finish through traffic and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I thought those were the type of lessons that I learned playing up on, you know, growing up on the playground against some of those older guys.
Yeah. Roosevelt Barnes, and for people who've been watching Purdue basketball since the late 70s and 80s, will forever be known for, here he is, I think in maybe your sophomore year against Magic, you were schooling Magic on a play, I think you went right around and dunked on him, as I recall, but
Yeah.
forever known in his senior year for really two of the classic matchups and really why the Purdue-Indiana, one of the reasons the Purdue-Indiana rivalry is what it is. And the great story of defending Isaiah Thomas and beating Indiana, who ended up winning the national championship that year. Great story about the fact that you came in and defended him very well in a game that Purdue won. But then the story of going out and playing for the Detroit Lions and meeting up with Isaiah again. Give us the Cliff Notes version of that story, because it's one of my favorites in terms of your relationship with him as a player in college, but then in the NFL when you went to Detroit. And of course, Isaiah was with the Pistons.
Right. It was a big rivalry, Purdue, you know, Purdue, Indiana, big rivalry. And we had our run-in.
Yeah. That's putting it mildly.
Yeah. And it was just that was when the Big Ten was a little different. It was a man's game. You know, you cut through the lane, you got hit.
Yeah.
And so Isaiah and I had our little run-in in college, and so I ended up I played a year. Isaiah gets drafted to Detroit.
Yeah.
I get drafted to Detroit, and of course I had to get in the weight room because I went from a point guard to a linebacker.
Yeah.
Most people who change go from basketball to football, they typically play on the offensive side. But I got in the weight room, and I had probably gained another, probably about 25 pounds. Just I was pretty cut up back then.
Yeah.
So they played at the Silver Dome, and we played and practiced at the Silver Dome. So I remember coming down. He was coming up the tunnel, and I was coming down the tunnel, and he saw me, and I saw him. We looked at each other. I said, "You want to try me now, buddy?" And it was just he and I in the, right there. And, I had my arms swollen. I'm swollen.
Yeah.
I was like, "So you want to try me now, partner?"
Yeah.
And he thought I was serious. And he was like, "Hey, man, hey, bro, And then I laughed and we hugged and we got to be pretty good friends after that. But it was a lot of fun.
See, that's what's scary. We're running pictures of Isaiah and Brian Walker Rosie and Brian Walker trapping Isaiah Thomas in the '81 Purdue Indiana game. But when you look, and you can't see him on camera, but when you look at him, he scares you when you say, "I don't know if you're kidding right now," and you say you want to go. I don't want to go. But you had the chance to play for Jim Young and get into football. You played baseball also. What got you out of baseball? Was it hitting a curveball, or just that part of it, or what?
Yeah, baseball. If hindsight's always 20/20. If I had it to do over again, I would have really concentrated on playing baseball. Baseball. When I was playing for Purdue, they had a double round robin back then, and so after basketball season, I went and played baseball. And the first part of the season, teams, because I was a basketball player, they just thought they were just going to throw it by me.
Yeah.
And so I was raking the baseball. I mean, I was really hitting. I think I was leading right at the top of the league in several categories. So the second time around, they start throwing the curveball, and I didn't know what to do. I think I went 5 for 55, next 55 times up. And I got discouraged, and people kept telling me to keep my weight back, and I was doing all kind of different stuff trying to figure out how to hit the curveball. Just couldn't figure it out. And so that's why I stopped playing. And people kept telling me to keep my weight back. Well, actually, after I was done playing uh, professional football.
Yeah.
I was helping a young man in Fort Wayne, a guy named Ray Moon, get ready to play for baseball, and he was in the batting cage. And a guy, batting coach, he actually filmed me. He said, well, you got a nice swing. You got to keep your weight back. And I didn't know what he was talking about. So he took a trophy, and he said, see how the guy is on the trophy? He said, that's keeping your weight back.
Yeah.
And he filmed me. That was the first time I ever saw myself bat. I said, wow,
Yeah.
I understand now. So anyway, I know I'm along, but
Yeah.
anyway, I was 30 years old. I said, I think I can still make it. So I went to the Kansas City Royals tryout camp down in Florida. I got my birth certificate and changed the date on it to make me 10 years younger.
Yeah.
And I put Willie Mays Barnes on
Yeah.
on the birth certificate. And I went, I had my hat pulled down like this. I handed it to the guy. And he looked at it, and he looked at me, looked at him, and he said, come on, Rosie, I saw you play with them Lions. You know you're too old. Let's give it up. So, but that was my baseball. I wish I had concentrated on it more.
Yeah. Good question about, obviously your son Biggie's one of the best rebounders in the Big Ten, if not the best. Your best rebounder you ever played against in college basketball, was it Arnett Hallman? Was it, of course, you'd been playing with him, but other rebounders around the league? What were the best that you saw?
Yeah, Arnett was special.
Yeah.
I mean, Arnett could jump out of the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, he could really jump out of the gym. I would have to say that Arnett is the best rebounder that I played with or against in my college days.
Yeah. Arnett Hallman living in Germany, and we just did a story on him from 2 weeks ago, but from the opportunity to where were you, or how do you remember his game-winning shot against Michigan State and the opportunity to see that happen? But your opportunity too, when Lee Rose, which we've talked before, not necessarily your favorite coach, and you learned something from that. But Gene Cady was maybe a little bit more your style in terms of you guys are almost identical in personality from that. What about that? The fact that you went from Fred Schaus to Lee Rose to Gene Cady. There was a lesson in that somewhere. That what did you take from all that?
Well. It was actually bittersweet. I think that, when the Coach Schaus recruited me, I wish he had stayed.
Mm-hmm.
The coach, he was still at Purdue while I was here, but he moved up into the athletic front office.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would have made a big difference in my basketball career had he stayed. The lessons that you learn is to never quit.
Yeah.
Even when there are circumstances that you wish that were different.
Yeah.
I think that you don't allow people to tell you what you can and what you can't do.
Yeah.
I think that Coach Rose was coaches sometimes they want their own players.
Yeah.
And he challenged me. He was told me that I could quit the team, really. And I told him I wasn't going anyplace. And he was going to have to look at me every day in practice. And so I stuck around, and I said I'm not going anyplace. And eventually, I think he figured out that I wasn't. And once the tournament started, I actually got to play a little bit for him, even for him. Yeah. And then Coach Cady came in, and he was one of the toughest guys that I had ever been around. And if I had gotten a chance to play for him more than 1 year, I think it would have been a really good, a really fun time playing for Purdue.
Yeah, there's no doubt that you were two peas in a pod in terms of toughness, and that was that first year with Coach Gene Cady, a trip to New York, and you went to the Final Four in the NCAA tournament, and of course the Final Four in the NIT. All right, we could go on. We're going to have you on again because we haven't gotten to about half the things I want to talk about. One question we've gotten a couple of it. Just to, there's been a lot of talk about Biggie and the NBA down the road. That is still obviously a goal, but how do you evaluate to where he is at this point, and what do you see for him down the road?
Well, I think that again, every day you have to work on your fundamentals. You have to be able to do something that translates to the next level. Even when Biggie was heavy, he always rebounded the basketball. And rebounding is something that people do if you're in elementary school or junior high, high school, college, pros. People who rebound. Mm-hmm. Biggie is a natural rebounder. And so we concentrate on being the best in the game at going to get the basketball. So, of course, he wants to be a pro. That's why he works as hard as he does. You don't become a pro while people are in the stands, when there's 15,000 people or whatever it is in Mackey. You become a pro on a daily basis. And so when nobody's cheering. Yeah. And so that's what we're doing, and he's doing each day to try to become the best that he can be. And you don't become a pro until you become a pro and great in your mind. You have to know first that you are, and regardless of what the obstacles are, you got to grind every day. So the pros will let us know when it's time to go. Yeah. When they say, because it doesn't matter how good I think he is. I don't cut any checks. Yeah. The people who cut checks, they'll let us know when it's time for him to go, but in the meantime, we just have to continue to get better each day. All
right, we're going to do this again sometime. Maybe we'll just have him every other week. But no, we're not going to do that, Tim. But we thank you so much for the time today and taking your time out of your busy schedule to be here. We're going to take a 2-minute break and then join with Doug Schreiber, who's Purdue's esteemed baseball coach. Kyle Charters will come on as well. And I'm sure Doug would be happy to give Rosie a couple hints on hitting, but maybe you already figured that out. So we'll take a short break, be back for the final segment of Gold and Black Live.